PNR Networks is a member of Patreon. Show your love for our shows by joining our ongoing fundraising campaign and get some fantastic perks in return. Check it out and become a Patreon sponsor. You can sign up at patreon.com, patreon.com/PNR Networks. And thanks for your support.
This podcast is a member of the Blueberry Network. Blueberry. No E's. That's Blueberry, BLUBRRY.com. Blueberry.com.
This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
It's Kim versus TC in the battle of the lists.
My list is better.
My list is better.
My list is better.
No, it's not. My list is better.
Kim or TC, who has the better list? From Subject Cinema, this is Front Row 5 and 10 with Kim Brown and TC Kirkham.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another week here on Front Row 5 and 10. Brought to you by the good folks that bring you Subject Cinema. That would be me and him, the me being Kim Brown.
And then him being TC Kirkham. Mm-hmm. Another week goes by. Another month goes by. I have to apologize. We have been away for a month, and it is all my fault. I'm going to take blame where it is. I had a hell of a time coming up with this. And I just kept postponing it. Now, we won't have that trouble next week, because I got a good one, and she's not going to have trouble with it.
Hope so.
Anyway, we're glad you're here, and we hope you're having fun. We hope you're enjoying Subject Cinema's Drive-In Summer also. And if you've got an idea for a list, if we use it, we'll give you a prize. Email us at frontrow@PNRNetworks.com.
Yes.
You chose this week's list, and
I did.
Damn, it was a bear.
Sorry. I didn't think it was going to be this difficult. The list this week is one of mine. It is our list of the most dangerous fantasy characters. Now, what I meant...
Now, characters? Creatures?
Characters, creatures, beings, however you want to word it.
Well, those are two different things. Characters are individual characters, and creatures are a genre.
Creatures. I should say creatures.
Because you said creatures last time. If you're going characters, I'm in trouble. Okay.
No. Although we will be mentioning individual characters as part of the groups. This is just our list of who would you rather meet in a dark alley? A or B.
I don't want to meet any of these in a dark alley.
Well, and I should say up front that while this is kind of a general thing, pretty much everybody on my list of creatures, there are good characters that are part of all of these groups as well. But there are bad ones too. So...
Most of mine are bad except for one.
All right, chucking that out there.
Okay.
So, since it's my list, I guess you should start.
Yeah, excuse me in advance if you feel any of these are terribly lame. As I said, I had great difficulty. The reason is, she's a fantasy fanatic, and I'm not. Well, so I had to delve into the world of science fiction and a few other places.
Well, I did that too.
To get these.
I went all genres.
And I went specific on a couple things. So.
Movies, TV, books, comic books.
Right.
I went all over the place, and I hope you did too.
Yeah, for the most part.
So
my number 10 is the kind of monster that you don't know really what it is. So it makes it even scarier. Right. Because, well, it has no form, no shape, no substance. And I don't know, I've never seen the original film all the way through. But I know bad things happen if you get near it. Number 10, blobs. Mm-hmm. As in the blob and son of blob and beware the blob and the blob next door and the blob's second cousin twice removed.
Right, we get it.
These oozing, shapeless masses of destruction and
Yeah.
I mean, they're not evil, obviously. I don't know. Do they think what they're doing?
Well,
or is it all instinct?
Well, it depends on what you're dealing with. I mean, I can understand where you're coming from with that. Besides the things you mentioned, like the Blob and those kind of movies, you have lots of creatures that fall into that category if you're a gamer like us.
Yes, there's tons of stuff
green
in it.
slime, gray ooze, gelatinous cubes, things like that. Yeah.
Although green slime, as we know it, is not deadly. It's usually just falling over a kid's head on Nickelodeon.
That's a different kind of green slime.
It is, but it's still called green slime.
Well, yeah,
we're
that's
talking
true.
green slime as in green slime.
And we're not talking that horrible Italian movie either. Blech.
Okay.
Well, that's
My
not-
number 10, Blobs, as
right.
in the Blob.
Okay, that's a terrific choice. My number 10 are robots. Now, when I say robots, that lumps everything in there. Robots, androids, cyborgs, so on and so forth. Robots can be dangerous creatures because usually they're larger than humans. Not all the time, but a lot of times they are. And even the ones that aren't larger than humans are usually armed with an odd laser or two. The reason that robots are so far down on my list is because for the most part, and this is not always accurate, but for the most part, robots are doing somebody else's bidding. They're not autonomously thinking, I'm going to go do this. They're doing beep, boop, beep, follow master's orders kind of stuff. That can be more easily defeated than something that's thinking on its own. Now, that's not always accurate because sometimes you wind up with a robot that's a little bit, that's one step ahead of everybody else. Case in point, like Ultron. But still, it's still a machine. And machines can get turned off. So my number 10, robots.
Okay. I didn't even think of it that way. Because I know a lot more good robots than bad robots.
Okay.
Overall.
All right.
You have 3PO and the Star Wars universe. You have the Iron Giant. You have
Right.
Data. There's
You also have the Daleks.
Yes, you have the Daleks and the Cybermen.
I win.
Yeah. I'm not saying I wasn't playing to pissing contest.
No, I know. Although I don't know, would you consider a Dalek a robot technically?
Yes.
You would?
It's a hybrid.
Yeah.
It has living tissue in it.
Yeah.
Like Cybermen do too.
And living tissue looking like something that got sick in a bucket. But it's
my number 9, Kim is more into mythology than I am. I've liked it when I was a kid, but I never really stayed with it. And she can give the detailed histories of 80 million of the gods, pantheon and stuff.
in other words, Kim's a mythology nerd.
Yeah,
Yay!
well, you are, and you use it to your advantage. But I thought of one particular
Okay.
from mythology or that kind of thing that we recently experienced one, and we decided it wasn't a full one; it was just a high. My number 9, hydras. Hydras are 8-headed, 9-headed. See, mythology nerd. 9-headed monsters that are coming at you, and that's why we have Hail Hydra in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, the whole cut off one head, 2 more take its place.
They're ugly too.
No, they're not attractive.
They're
no.
not attractive animals.
No.
This is a question I thought was interesting. Does each head think autonomously?
That depends on who's telling the story. Usually, no. Hydras,
They're all part of one collective
yeah, it's
brain.
usually, yeah.
So
Usually
they're Borg.
Kind of, yeah. Usually the
Oh,
central...
damn, I didn't even think of the Borg. Okay.
The central head is usually the head that is the thinking head. Everything
Right.
else is just teeth,
Okay.
normally.
So those are totally creepy, and they've been around since mythology, and they've been in all kinds of modern stories too.
Yep.
Number 9, Hydra.
Okay, that's a great choice. My number 9 choice for creatures that, and this one is another one that can be very, very varied, and not all of them are bad. My number 9 are merpeople. Now, merpeople, or beings of the ocean, or lakes, or wherever you are, that covers a lot. Obviously, the biggest example of something like that would be a mermaid. Now,
Do they have mer creatures in lakes?
Yes.
I've never seen any portrayed in
beings-
lakes, always in the ocean. So
There are beings that live in lakes and streams and ponds
Okay.
and things like that.
I don't know.
A naiad, for one, is a Greek. A naiad is like what you would get if you took a dryad and put it in a lake instead of in a tree.
Oh, well, yeah, and the mermaids from the lure were from rivers, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So, mermaids, now the thing about mermaids is the fact that mermaids can be nice. So all the Disney people out there that are screaming and yelling at me right now, I know mermaids can be nice. Calm down. But for the most part, mermaids are a lot more dangerous than they look. And actually the reason that they are dangerous is because of their looks. Because they are smoking hot from the waist up. Most of the time. You get the traditional idea that mermaids are beautiful and they sing songs and they lure sailors into drowning, or they fall in love with a sailor and they want to keep him and they tend to forget that people need to, breathe. And that can be bad. But there are also other things out there that aren't quite mer people in the fact of, the traditional woman's body, fishy bottom kind of a thing. There's also things like a kelpie, which is a creature that looks like a horse and hangs around by the water. And if somebody sits on it, thinking, yay, it's a horse, the kelpie will run into the water and you can't get off the horse and you drown and the kelpie eats you. There's also sirens, which are creatures that can lure men to their deaths by their beautiful singing, which are sometimes portrayed as mermaids, but not always. And then you've got the whole vampire mermaid thing.
Sirens are the ones that are in the lore, right?
I think those are sirens, yeah.
Siren vampire mermaids.
Yeah. And then you've got you've got the vampire thing in the lore, which is an extremely weird
The
movie.
Lure is a great Norwegian film that came out earlier this year, I think, in America, but we saw it last year at the Underground Film Festival.
Yeah.
It should be on HBO or somewhere before long.
Norwegian vampire movie.
Yeah, it was great.
And then, of course, you also had the vampire mermaid swarm kind of a deal thing in Pirates of the Caribbean, on
Stranger Tides,
which I was like, what? And, of course, then you have other interpretations of mermaids or mer people, because there are mermen. They do exist. For example, in J.K. Rowling's books in the Harry Potter universe, there are
some messed up mermaids.
There are mer people that live in the lake near Hogwarts, and the first time I saw them on screen, I was like, holy beep and beep, that's
only
a
Joanne
mermaid?
could come up with that.
Yeah. So my number 9 is, like I said, mermaids. They're on the list kind of low because usually, sometimes they don't mean any harm. Sometimes they actually don't know, oh, hey, humans need to breathe air. Oops.
Right.
So there's a little ignorance factor there sometimes. Sometimes it's malice, but sometimes it's not. So
Can I ask you to explain something as part of your dissertation on mermaids?
Okay.
Where do manatees fit in? Because that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of.
Okay, for those of you who are going, did we stumble on a wildlife program? What TC is talking about is that scientists and cultural anthropologists and people like that have speculated that what people at sea thought were mermaids were actually manatees. To which my response is, bullcrap. Because I don't care how much rum you drink.
You are not going to see a pretty girl in a manatee because, they're beautiful creatures as they are, but not anything human-looking.
No, I don't care how much rum you drink. I don't care how long you've been at sea. There is no way you are going to look at a manatee and think that looks like a big busted chick.
Yeah.
That's not happening.
No.
So, next for you.
I just wanted you to explain that because I find that fascinating. I don't know how science can come up with that.
It is fascinating and terrifying
ridiculously
at the same time.
silly at the same time.
Yeah.
My number 8, the only way I can put this is these are ugly mofos.
Okay.
And they're scary, and I wouldn't want to run into one in a dark alley or in a hallway that's not lit well or a spaceship. I wouldn't want to run into them anywhere, and I continually would thank all the deities there are that my last name is not Ripley. My number 8 are xenomorphs, the aliens from the Alien franchise. Never seen any of those movies all the way through because, let's face it, I'm a wuss.
I've only seen one in the theater and I cowered like a whipped dog, so,
Boy, Sigourney Weaver, that's who you call if you need help with the xenomorphs.
Apparently.
These things are ugly, and they're dangerous, and they can put things inside you. Poor John Hurt.
Yeah. They have acid blood, and they're
not friendly creatures.
No, they're not.
No way. There was actually a full-sized xenomorph statue of some sort at Sharper Image a few years ago. Mm-hmm. Our friend Stacy wanted it for Christmas. This tells you how crazy she is.
Needless to say, she didn't get it.
Not at $2,200. She's not going to get it.
You could buy a real Xenomorph for that kind of money.
My number 8.
Which we're also not ever getting you, Stacy, so don't ask.
My number 8, Xenomorphs from the Alien franchise.
Okay, that's a terrific choice. My number 8 are ghosts. Now, ghosts, again, with ghosts you run into...
I stayed away from the supernatural stuff, just generally, because I wanted to go a different direction.
Okay, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Ghosts are, again, they're very varied. You can have ghosts that are malevolent. You can have ghosts that are benign. And a lot of times, over the recent years, ghosts have changed in movies and TV and things like that, and books. Usually... Previously, ghosts just hung around, and that was scary enough for people back then. It's a dead person. And it's not, and that was frightening enough as it was. Over the last couple of years, you've had ghosts that can actually interact with people on a physical level, can touch them, can hurt them, can kill them in some cases. But at the end of the day, I'm not saying ghosts are easy to get rid of or anything like that, unless you know what you're doing. Depending on the story, depending on whatever universe you're in, ghosts can be forced to move on if you burn their bones or their personal effects. Ghosts other places can be banished with religious symbols, or they have to, you complete a task for them or something like that.
It all depends on the writer,
It all depends on the writer,
yeah.
And it also depends on the writer in regards to what the ghost looks like. I mean, sometimes we've gone beyond the whole Scooby-Doo sheet with an eye hole, cut out in it kind of a thing. And you have ghosts that can be frightening looking. You have ghosts that can be sad looking.
Or you have the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Well, that's not a ghost.
No, it's not. It's technically not a ghost.
No. I mean, you look at a movie like The Sixth Sense where the little kid sees ghosts, and that's traumatizing enough. These ghosts don't actually have to hurt him. Just knowing they're there and that he can see them is enough. Or
Paranorman, which is the same thing.
Paranorman, or a film like Ghost, which involved the whole idea that, ghosts can reach out to the physical world if they concentrate hard enough and if they have enough of a reason. So that's, and like I said, there's tons of other examples of ghosts, specters, poltergeists, everything else. So my number 8 are ghosts.
My number 7 is the first one that has a variant of different types of them. Mm-hmm. And it all depends on what mythos you're listening to or what you're reading about, what country the stories and the folklore came from.
Right.
Or what horror writer they came from. Because they all look different, they all do different things. And they're all usually pretty dangerous, although sometimes they mean to be and other times it's oblivious. Okay. My number 7 are trolls. You have trolls like the troll living under the bridge in the Three Billy Goats Gruff, which is the one that every kid knows.
Right.
You have trolls, the little tiny things that come in the troll movies. And then you have the trolls of Norwegian mythology, as we see in Troll Hunter.
Yeah.
Which is quite possibly one of the best movies of the decade.
Which you really, really, really don't want to run into.
No, especially the Jotnar. Is that
Jotnar.
The tall one, the 200-foot tall one? I'm like, yike.
Yep.
They're not all bad looking. And can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Would you consider the central character in Where the Wild Things Are a troll?
No.
I always thought they called him Carol in the movie. I always thought that he was kind of a troll type.
They're monsters. They're, hybrid monsters, mixes of things. They're not trolls, no.
Trolls can be pretty scary.
Oh, yeah, trolls can be pretty scary.
You're a little kid reading a story about little innocent little billy goats trying to get across the bridge when you're like 8. And you hear about the trolls and they come up and they make these, depending on which book you're reading, these ugly, horrifying creatures. Although in at least one of them, I've seen them, they look more like a fat pig than a troll. They can be quite scary.
That's a great choice.
Number 7, trolls.
The one thing that is, I guess, an advantage to most people that deal with trolls is for the most part, they aren't the brightest bulbs on
No,
the tree.
no.
They can, a lot of stories, people who run into them, they can trick their way out of, dealing with the troll, getting the troll to go away or do something so that they can get away. Because, like I said, they're not the sharpest knives in the drawer.
In the movie Troll Hunter, they can be dispatched with extremely bright light.
Yes. Well, that's also in a lot of the myths. Tolkien used that as well in his stories of Middle Earth.
Yep, he did.
Sunlight,
which you saw in The Hobbit.
Yeah, that
the first
sunlight
Hobbit movie.
turns trolls to stone.
Right. The ones in Troll Hunter sometimes explode.
Yeah. Well, they turn to stone and then explode, which is,
No, the one on the bridge where they're underneath the bridge just exploded.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true.
See, Troll Hunter.
My number 7 is actually going back to yours from a little earlier. I was a little more all-encompassing. My number 7 are aliens.
Okay.
Because aliens do have the whole... like I said, there are terrific aliens out there. There are aliens that we love and adore, like Mr. Spock and Chewbacca and...
E.T.
And
everybody in Star Wars, because it's not set on Earth.
That's true. Yeah, everybody in Star Wars. And all
I know you
other...
don't love E.T. Everybody else does.
I know. But there are a lot of aliens out there that are hostile to Earthlings or just people who show up, whether they're Earthlings or not, for whatever reason. Earlier films in this country, I would say up till E.T. and then the pendulum swung the other way.
It goes back and forth.
It does. Earlier films of aliens were all the whole alien invader kind of a thing. And you had aliens showing up for 9 kabillion different reasons. From they want our oil, they want our water, they want our women, all kinds of different things like that.
Don't remind us of that one.
Or they just want to blow us up for whatever reason. Sometimes they don't even give a reason. They just show up and start blowing crap up like Independence Day. The reason that aliens are kind of lower on my list than other creatures coming up later is because sometimes, especially in films, although in books as well, some of the things that are used to defeat the aliens, you're like, what? Great example, the H.G. Wells classic War of the Worlds.
The Common Cold.
Yeah, where the Martians all keel over because they catch the sniffles. And they all croak. They all croak because of the common cold. Another example, which is a much stupider one, I'm sorry, but there it is from 1996's Mars Attacks, which is, no one should take this movie seriously, obviously, because it's goofy as hell.
It's a parody.
Yeah. The whole thing of it is that these aliens show up and start blowing stuff up and killing people and all that stuff like that. And the people of Earth, in a desperate need to try and save themselves, find out that the aliens' weakness, the fatal weakness that makes the aliens' heads actually explode, is a recording of Slim Whitman singing Indian Love Call. I wish I was making that up, but I'm not.
When I'm calling you.
No, don't do it. Don't do it, please.
I can't yodel.
Please.
Sorry.
Good. Thank
Maybe we
you.
should call that lady Ilinkia from Eurovision.
Anyway. So, for the varied and sometimes extraordinarily weird ways of dispatching beings from other planets that show up and cause problems, aliens are my number 7.
Okay. My number 6 is all-encompassing as well, because there are good ones, sort of, and there are bad ones, sort of, and most of them are just are, or is, or will be. And then there are stupid-looking ones, and ones with, really stupid little dinosaur arms that are flailing around their puppet.
Yep.
Number 7, kaiju.
Okay.
Specifically, all the kaiju from every country that's ever roamed. There are cool kaiju like Godzilla. There are evil kaiju like Ghidorah, King Ghidorah, who is actually an extraterrestrial.
Also like Godzilla in some of the movies.
And the giant claw, another extraterrestrial. And then there are goofy ones like Minya, Godzilla's son, and Reptilicus. And what was the one we just watched? Yongari. I am a big fan. Kim has gotten me into Godzilla films, especially the earlier ones, which are really well done. The first Godzilla film, if you see the original Japanese one, Gojira, or the Raymond Burr one, Godzilla King of the Monsters, fantastic movie. Well written, well acted. The story behind it is terrific. But there are other kaiju films like Reptilicus that are just a freaking waste of time. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, you're going to be afraid of Reptilicus. I mean, the premise behind Reptilicus was great. And they just executed it so poorly.
Yeah.
Let's put Reptilicus in this new legendary thing. Let them do it and do it right. Maybe it'll look good. Mm-hmm. Who knows? But most of them can be quite deadly. And if you live in Japan in particular, you're always in danger of having your house stomped on. Stomp. Or your business blown up. And Big Man Japan isn't coming to save you.
Nope.
That movie sucks. Sorry, Eric. Number 6, Kaiju.
Okay. My number 6 is actually taking a much different tack than everything else because I'm specifically talking about humans. Specifically, my number 6 are magic users. Humans that use magic. Now, where their source of magic comes from depends on the film or the TV show or the book or whatever.
Would you actually... Can I clarify something?
Yeah.
Humans that use magic, you would consider under the term creatures.
It depends.
Okay.
It would depend.
I'm just asking.
It depends on your definition of what makes a human being.
Okay.
I'll give you a really good example. What I think is a good example from my favorite show, Supernatural. Witches in the Supernatural universe, there are people who have magical powers inborn, but a lot of witches gain their powers by selling their souls to a demon in exchange for magical powers.
Mm-hmm. Who's surprised she slipped something from Supernatural in this week?
Who's surprised it took her this long? But, you have to wonder, if you sell your soul, what have you become? Especially considering what happens after you die. I would put magic users on this list simply because, some magic users do.
I think you should clarify evil magic users.
Some magic users do physically change because of their magic, and it is usually evil magic users, as you mentioned. A great example would be, and I've forgotten his name, Mads Mikkelsen's character from Doctor Strange, who looked all kinds of screwed up after siding with Dormammu. And other characters that you don't know if magic is what changed them, but they're definitely not what you'd usually think of when you think of a person looking that way. Like, for an example, the Wicked Witch of the West from The Wizard of Oz. Green skin, all that. The reason that magic users are kind of in the middle on my list is because magic users, for the most part, yes, they are very powerful in their use of magic, and magic can be a devastating weapon if you know what you're doing. The reason they're kind of in the middle is because, for the most part, and sorry to everybody out there, especially Benedict Cumberbatch, because you worked really hard for the body you had in Doctor Strange, and you looked fabulous. For the most part, magic users aren't built for combat. They usually rely on their magic to get them out of situations and stuff like that. And that's fantastic. Unless you run up against somebody who's A, better magic user than you, or B, has some kind of magic sword, cape, amulet, whatever, that blocks your magic, or your name is Conan.
Ain't none of that's going to affect Elminster.
Well, yeah, but Elminster's a good, uses good magic.
Yes, he does. He can defeat all those guys, though.
Probably.
Damn it, carry the two.
Probably. But
private joke.
And so I think that they're kind of in the middle because they can be very dangerous and they can be very powerful. But if they run up against somebody who's physically more powerful than them, you're not going to really be able to do much if the guy can just pick you up and wring your neck like a chicken. So my number 6...
But he has to be able to get to you
He has to be able to get to you. That is true. But if he does get to you and goes, snap!
Yeah.
Game over. So my number 6, magic users.
All right. Without giving away any of your upcoming 5...
Yep.
My number 5 is from the Harry Potter universe. What do you think is the most terrifying thing, if it's not on your list already, from the Harry Potter universe?
What do I think is the
Yes.
most terrifying
What would
thing?
you consider?
Well, one of
Not
them
counting
is...
Voldemort. I can then consider people.
I would say probably Dementors.
Yes, number 5.
Yeah.
The Dementors in the Harry Potter universe are scary as hell.
Yeah.
We really only see them in a big way in Prisoner of Azkaban. But,
Yes, that's enough.
Oh, yeah. Yike, those things are creepy.
Well, it's not even so much that they're scary looking, which they are, but it's what they can do.
Yes.
That makes it a gabillion times worse. It's a terrific choice.
Yeah, and I mean, having them on prison guard duty would make me want to get the hell out of there, too. I mean, pretty much everybody in what's the name of the prison?
Azkaban.
Oh, yeah, duh. Sorry. Probably... would like to get away from there and have been driven stark raving crazy by the fact that these things are the guards. Mm-hmm. They're cold, unfeeling. They can change they can literally get into your soul.
Yeah.
It's creepy as hell. Dementors.
And they suck out all your good memories.
Yeah. Dementors, number 5.
That's freaking horrifying. My number 5 is, this one's going to get a little bit esoteric, so run with it. My number 5 is the Fae. That's F-A-E, for those of you who don't know. And like I said before, this is not saying all Fae are bad. Because there are lots of Fae out there that are beneficial to humans in stories and stuff like that. But there are some Fae that are dangerous. Now, when I say Fae, the Fae are the fair folk, or fairies, as they're also known. These are magical creatures that are not human, and they live, in folklore in all over the world. Every culture has some version of the Fae, whether they call them fairies, leprechauns, whatever. There are Fae everywhere. And the thing about the Fae that make them kind of dangerous is the fact that by their nature, they're very mercurial, and they sometimes don't think of the consequences of their actions when they do things for humans, and stuff can go wrong. Sometimes they do think of what they're doing to humans, and stuff can go terribly wrong. There's also the fact that Fae live in a different, I'd almost say a pocket dimension kind of a thing, where a lot of old stories would tell about people who find or stumble on like a Fae celebration, fairies having a party or something like that, or dancing, and them joining up for a little while. They think they've only been gone for a little while, and they come back home 10, 20, 30 years have gone by. They haven't changed. Everybody thought they were dead, or their families moved away, or they're dead, or something like that. And that's not even getting into Fae that are dangerous, boggarts, and things like that. Mm-hmm. Even a type of Fae like a brownie. Brownies are little spirits that, if you have a brownie in your house, that they will do nice things. They will do nice things and clean up and do all things like that. And if you give them gifts and things like milk and things like that, that's the things they like. If you give them something they don't like or something that will offend them, they might go away, if you're lucky. If they don't go away, they might start being a little bit less helpful and a little more malicious. Mm-hmm. So, my number 5, the Fae.
Okay, that's so wide encompassing, it's scary.
It is. It's very widely encompassing. And then, like I said, there are good and bad.
So is my number 4, because there's all different types of them, especially if you're in the D&D universe. But they exist in so many different types of literature also, that it's hard because sometimes they're good and sometimes they're not. Mm-hmm. Number 4 is dragons. They're usually also big. And they don't look stupid like the ones Dee Dee came up with in Dexter's lab. No. Specifically, when you think of bad dragons, I tend to think of Smaug from the Lord of the Rings and from the Hobbit series, not Lord of the Rings, that's later, which Tolkien wrote, and especially because I had never been able to get into those books. Benedict Cumberbatch made that character come alive with his voice work and his motion capture stuff. And it was really something special to behold.
Yes.
That's why I like the second Hobbit movie and not the other two that well. On the other hand, you have Falkor from the Neverending Story. Mm-hmm. Perhaps one of the most beloved dragons of all time.
Even though
he's
he
a
doesn't
cool,
look like a
fuzzy
dragon.
pink dragon that Atreyu...
He's more white than...
Oh, he's got pink in him. White with pink highlights.
He's furry.
And fuzzy, furry. Same thing. Don't be picking nits, woman.
Well, no, but he's not what you... He doesn't look like a traditional dragon.
He's a luck dragon.
Yeah.
And he lets Atreyu fly on his back to help save Fantasia in that film and in Neverending Story. 2, less said about the better. And 3, I'm not going to go into because I didn't see it. There are also different sizes dragons. Some of them are huge. Some of them are not so huge, such as the Toothless. Is that the name of the one in How to Train Your Dragon?
Yep.
There's so many different species that you're going to find some that will be working well with humans and some which will just come along, nom, 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 nom. And then you have the ones in between that have their own agenda, like Smaug. Dragons are terrifying, and I wouldn't want to meet them, even the nice ones, unless it was Falkor. I wouldn't mind riding Falkor. He wouldn't let me fall off, even though I'm scared of heights. Number 4, dragons.
Okay. My number 4 is a little more... It's not as all-encompassing as the one I just did, but it can be a little more varied than some people might think. It just depends on what you happen to be reading. Mm-hmm. My number 4 are lycanthropes. Or lycanthropes, depending on how you pronounce it.
From where you're from, yep.
Yeah.
They're both proper, actually.
When somebody says lycanthropy, people automatically who know what that means, besides the people who go, what? Would say, oh, that's someone who changes into a werewolf. And you'd be right. Most of the time.
Yeah.
A good example of other weird creatures would be the D&D universe, where they went completely bananas. And besides werewolves, there are were tigers, were rats, were bears, were boars, etc., so on and so forth. The whole idea of a being that will change into a wolf or other creature when the moon is high is one way of doing it. Mm-hmm. The other way of doing it is people who can do this whenever they want, which is the way the original story of werewolves went. A lot of people in the original stories of werewolves, they actually wanted to be werewolves. When
you ever want to hear Kim go absolutely nuts about a particular lore, get her started on any werewolf movie with a full moon in it, because it should just battle on for hours about it.
Well, it's okay.
And some of them make it easy.
Yeah.
I mean, even the producers of the TV series Werewolf, which was out on Fox in the 1980s, which I loved, one of their taglines is, "There's a full moon somewhere on Earth every night." And I'm like, no, there isn't.
No, there isn't. That's stupid. The whole thing that everybody knows about, or everybody's used to from movies, the whole full moon, bite changes you, blah, 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 that's all crap. That was Hollywood's interpretation, and it became part of the lore, fine. The reason that lycanthropes are so high on my list is because, A, they have been around pretty much since the beginning of humanity. There's been these kind of stories of shape changers throughout every culture. Mm-hmm. And they're so varied. The interpretation of what... We'll just settle with the werewolf right now. It's so different depending on, if it's a movie, TV show,
right,
book,
yeah,
comic book, whatever.
And the writers.
Yeah. You have people who are werewolves and they're, oh, poor me, I'm tormented, kind of Larry Talbot kind of a thing. And you have, J.K. Rowling's look at werewolves in a tragic character like Remus Lupin.
Who you said looked stupid. when he morphed.
I'm sorry. I was like, this
Going
is a
back to
werewolf?
Prisoner of Azkaban
Are you
again.
kidding me? But that's their take on it. Whatever. The whole Underworld series, which really highlighted the whole werewolf versus vampire thing, which is a very recent conflict sort of a thing, I think. But I think the reason that werewolves are so high on my list is because you all, and lycanthropes in general, is something else that I'm actually going to bring up with the next creatures on my list. It feeds into a basic human fear, and that's the fear of contamination. That's the fear of you have something bad, and because of what you have, you can give that to me, and I'll wind up like you.
Yeah.
It's the loss of control. And if there's one thing human beings have this hang-up about, it's control. Of course, werewolves, lycanthropes for the most part, can be usually killed by one thing, a silver bullet, or a silver whatever, or a stake through the heart if you watch an incredibly stupid movie called The Boy Who Cried Werewolf. I'd like to slap the writers of that. But my number 4...
The Boy Who Cried Lasso Apso.
Yeah, seriously. My number 4, lycanthropes.
Actually, Sven compared him to a Shih Tzu.
Yeah.
Which is actually pretty good.
Yep.
My number 3, this is a creature which is unusual in the fact that it's been depicted in a lot of different places, in a lot of different writing, and yet it usually appears somewhat variant on the exact same design. Which is weird, because most of the time, if you like with trolls, you have trolls that are tiny, mid-size, super big, and everything in between.
And holy crap, it's coming at us.
And these are depicted almost always as the same. They have a large body, they have a massive number of arms, and you're like, but they look basically the same. Whether you're seeing them in Clash of the Titans, the Lord of the Rings films, or the Pirates of the Caribbean. Number 3 on my list, Kraken. You will always see it look like a deformed octopus with way more. It has more than 8 arms, of course. But you see these horrific sequences. Release the Kraken! Like you could ever keep that thing. I mean, well, I suppose you could if you're Zeus. You're a god.
They did. Yeah. Clash of the Titans.
Yeah, I know. I saw the first one.
They did that much better in the original one than the remake.
I thought the original good film was fine. Then you have this monstrosity in Fellowship. Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring. You never really get a clear view of it.
The Watcher in the Water.
Yeah. But it's clearly a Kraken of some sort.
Yeah.
And you can't get past it in the video game.
No.
There's no way past it. We tried and tried and tried. And there's no way past it. And then, as used in Pirates of the Caribbean, where they pull down ships and destroy ships, and they end up... And that was in the first one, I think, or was it the second one? Second one.
And we see it very briefly in the third one at the beginning, and it's dead.
Right. So they're always the same basic design.
Right. Like
ugly, huge, scary, giant maw. I wouldn't want to get picked up and thrown in one.
No.
I suppose they're sort of similar to a few creatures from the Star Wars universe, too, although those are mostly in sand. And maybe in the Dune universe, too. There's some that are also sand-based, but they're basically the same thing.
Well, a lot of wood pictures and stuff, the old wood carvings and stuff that showed a Kraken. It's basically a giant squid.
Yeah.
Which I'm always kind
Well, it doesn't look anything like a squid to me.
No, it's when they
not as depicted in the movies. Like you could have brought that up too with Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Oh, I think that was supposed to be an octopus.
Yeah, that was a giant octopus. 20,000.
The squid was on the front of the ship, or was that the octopus? That was one of them. And then there's the giant one from Walt Disney's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So
I think the reason that they went with making the Kraken look so unworldly and so like a giant squid on steroids, is because people know giant squids exist.
Right.
And giant squids are scary.
Well, the proof of giant squids existing didn't happen until just a few years ago.
That's true.
In the 21st century.
Live giant squids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even dead ones, full ones.
Right. No, that's true too.
So
that's a terrific choice.
Number 3, Krakens.
Okay.
Kraken, I think. I think Kraken would also be plural.
Kraken would be actually, yeah.
Like octopus. You don't say octopuses.
No. Yeah, but if you have more...
Unless you're talking about Octopus's Garden, which is a person.
Well, if you have more than one Kraken, you are well and truly forked.
Yes, you are.
Number three on my list is, like I mentioned, this falls back to what I just mentioned in the other list, is why these are so frightening, besides the obvious fact that it's a dead person and they're trying to eat you. My number 3 are zombies. It's the whole fear of, the whole fear of contamination thing again. Now, I'm not going to get into the dissertation that I've gotten into 9 billion times. I know you guys are sick of hearing it. You know, the whole idea of what zombies started as to what zombies became later on.
Listen to Subject Cinema ad nauseum.
Or write me, platinumroselle@yahoo.com. What I would talk about is the fact that we definitely have broken off into 2 separate camps of the living dead, which are both frightening in their own respect, can both be pretty much usually taken out the same way, headshot, but that doesn't make them any less frightening. Now you have the George Romero Night of the Living Dead zombies, and you have the more modern zombies. Now the Night of the Living Dead zombies, in my opinion, for what it's worth, are scarier because they don't stop coming. They're mostly kind of quiet about it. They're just kind of shuffling. Sometimes they make a little moan here and there, that kind of a thing. But they just don't stop. It's just relentless. And I just find that more frightening than the newer zombies that came out in the late 90s, 2000s, with the remakes that they've done of Dawn of the Dead and so on and so forth. What I refer to as crack zombies. These are zombies
as opposed to shambling zombies.
Yes, as opposed to shambling zombies. Crack zombies are running at you, and they're screaming, and they're all wide-eyed and blah.
And 9 times out of 10, they're not really zombies. They're infected with something.
That's from the 28 Days Later film.
Well, also World War Z and a number of other
Yes, that's true.
So,
that is true. Something that I have brought up over and over again with people who talk about 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later, where they refer to it as a zombie movie, and I'm like, it's not a zombie movie, damn it! And I know I'm being nitpicky about that, but...
She's nitpicky about her favorite Halloween stuff.
Sorry. But it's, like I mentioned, I mean, this is obviously a very frightening thing because it's a dead person, and they're trying to eat you. The more frightening thing about zombies is the fact that usually, it doesn't start off this way, but usually by like halfway through the film, or even further through the film, or the book, or whatever you're reading, somebody around you, somebody you love, has become one of them. And you have to make that decision. Mm-hmm. You have to make that choice to put them down. Mm-hmm. And whether or not you want to admit it to yourself, and you can tell yourself all you want to, all you guys out there that are like, I'm a big, strong, tough man, look at how low my balls hang. I can totally do this. I'd love to see one of you guys put a bullet right between your grandma's eyes. Whether, because now she's trying to like suck your brains out your head. You're going to hesitate, and if you hesitate, you can get your throat torn open. Mm-hmm. So my number 3, zombies.
It's interesting because I just realized that we never really acknowledge it, but the infection zombie goes way back. It doesn't start with from the 20th, the crack zombie that's infected. Doesn't start with 28 Days Later.
No, it doesn't.
It goes back all the way to Last Man on Earth.
That's true.
And those are kind of a combo between zombies and vampires, so it's a little bit weird. But
yeah, it is.
Okay, my number 2, I got to distinct this because Tim's robots thing was a little bit wider net than I want to cast.
Okay, that's fair.
My number 2, I want to make clear, these are not cutesy walking, talking robots, androids, or anything else. These are disembodied. They don't have bodies the way we think of them, and that's why they're dangerous. My number 2, sentient computers.
Ooh.
Colossus. Skynet. HAL. None of them have bodies, but they are deadly to the human race. All the way around.
That's a fantastic choice.
And we're getting closer and closer to reality every day, which is really terrifying. Choice. You never want to go that far.
No.
Stephen Hawking keeps telling people, don't push that last button.
Mm-hmm.
But, science has to do stupid things sometimes.
Yeah. That's a great choice because the
internet is now universally connected.
Right.
It is incredibly easy when you think about it. It would only take a few wrong buttons pushing here and there for the World Wide Web to become Skynet. And that's a terrifying prospect if you're familiar with the Terminator films.
Right.
So it's like...
Or going back even further than that, like you mentioned with Colossus, the Foreman Project, which I hadn't seen until you had me watch it. And that movie scared the piss out of me. Why that movie...
I love that film.
Why that movie is not more well-known... I mean, it's known to science fiction fans that go back that far, but like a whole new generation.
They keep talking about remaking it or doing a sequel. Ron Howard currently has the rights to it.
He's going to be kind of busy.
He's going to be busy now that he's been appointed the new director of the Han Solo movie. But it's like, I would like to see what he would do with that because Colossus has a great. I mean, the idea of it picking up 50 years from where it left off because the original was made in 1971 and the book was written in the 60s.
Yeah.
So it's like. Wow, what could have happened to the planet since then? Mm-hmm. That would be terrific. But I mean, it's a great, and even in science fiction, M5 from Star Trek,
or Computo
from the Legion of Superheroes, the original Computo. Mm-hmm. All kinds of them. Although Computo is different. In the original Computo was kind of built with eyes and a head and stuff, but he didn't move much.
Right.
So. That's where that goes. Number 2, sentient computers disembodied.
Okay. My number 2 are also a member of the undead, but they are higher than zombies because, for the most part, most zombies, not all zombies, don't yell at me, zombie movie fans. For the most part, zombies don't think. They don't really have a plan. They just keep going forward. Mm-hmm.
I have some comments ready for this one.
Okay. Number 2 on my list of creatures that I wouldn't want to meet in a dark alley. Mm-hmm. Vampires. Vampires, again, pretty much every culture on Earth has something like a vampire. The idea of a dead being that comes back to life and feeds on the energy of the living. Now, whether that energy is actual psychic energy, life force, blood.
Usually it's blood.
That shows up better on the screen. For whatever reason, that's the way that it goes. Now,
is there actually a vampire movie where the vampire does say, I want to suck your blood?
In a non-facetious, non-sarcastic way? Probably not. I mean, if you had to ask me, I'd say no.
If it does, it's probably love at first bite. We'd have to check that one again. Anyway,
I don't think so. I think people just came up with that because it sounds neat. Especially when you do it in that kind of.
I want to suck your blood.
It's like, well, Garbo never said I want to be alone.
Yeah, I know.
So anyway, moving on. Vampires, you also have, like zombies and lycanthropes, you also have the fear of contagion. If that's your vampire. Some vampires just flat out kill people. But then you have vampires that can turn people. And depending on which genre you're in, or your movie, or your TV show, whatever, the method of turning is, your mileage may vary. Sometimes it's the vampire biting you. Sometimes you have to take blood from the vampire. It depends. And vampires are so high on my list because they are so varied. But in a lot of ways, they're the same. Vampires have a lot of vampires have the same weaknesses. The whole stake through the heart, or decapitation, aversion to holy symbols, sometimes depending on the vampire's actual religion before they died. Don't ask. And the whole origin story of the most famous vampire of all, Count Dracula, which has been done over and over and over and over and over again, to varying degrees of success. With everything from someone like Bela Lugosi's turn as Dracula, which is, in my opinion, the best ever, and I will fight you on that,
No, you're right.
To Gary Oldman's turn, which is more sensual, but also has this big tragic backstory. You had Dracula 2000, which postulated the idea that Dracula was actually Judas Iscariot, which I was like, whoa.
That was the one with Stuart Townsend, wasn't it?
No, that was the one with Gerard Butler.
Gerard Butler,
Yeah,
okay.
Stuart Townsend was Lestat in Queen of the Damned.
Right.
And, you have... And there's all the different ways that a vampire does what he does. You have it in a film like Todd Browning's Dracula, where it's just suggested. You don't actually see what's going on.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And
which makes it a really good film.
It is. It's an excellent.
Although
film.
I would have liked to have seen more at the end. But
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah.
I love that film though.
You have Lugosi's more seductive sort of Dracula. Then you look at Christopher Lee in the Hammer films, where it's not seduction, it's rape.
Yeah.
And everything in between. And vampires and their variations are why they're so high on my list. And the fact that vampires are smart. For the most part. Not every vampire.
I'm going to say, you say, at the beginning, you said the thing that separates them from zombies is that vampires think, correct?
For the most part.
2 words. Edward Cullen.
You have to think if you're whining that much. And I know I just pissed off a whole bunch of people.
Oh well, vampires don't sparkle anyway.
Yeah, vampires don't sparkle. My number 2, vampires. You knew we were going to get a Twilight Slam.
Oh yes, somewhere
you
we had to
that
do
was
it.
going to happen.
Even though we did enjoy those for the most part, just for the thought that they were. My number 1's going to come as a cop out, I think, to some people, but it's not when you think about it.
Okay.
When you are thinking of an emotion, and you're living your average life.
Okay.
And you're thinking of an emotion that could be utterly devastating to everyone and everything around you. What do you think that emotion would be?
Probably hate. Because hate isn't rational. When you hate something,
isn't rational, but hate is a little different. It has substance.
Okay.
What I'm thinking of doesn't have substance, and that's why it's so terrifying. Apathy.
Ooh.
And apathy is personified as the nothing and its servant, Gmork, in the Neverending Story, my number 1 dangerous fantasy creature.
That's fantastic.
The reason why they exist is because, as they are told at the end of the film, or throughout the film actually, the reason why the nothing is ravaging Fantasia is that kids have forgotten how to imagine. And if you forget how to imagine, or just don't care about imagination, the imaginary world's going to start shrinking.
Yeah.
There's less and less there. And that is what Atreyu is sent to stop. Mm-hmm. The Neverending Story is one of my all-time favorite films. I adore it. I just think it's so well done. And it's coming up again sometime soon at the Coolidge that we want to go see it again. Mm-hmm. But the apathy is represented by a dark, shapeless cloud called the Nothing in the film. And the Nothing's servant is this evil kind of wolf, kind of coyote, kind of fox animal called Gmork. Mm-hmm. And that animal in itself is terrifying, the way it bares its teeth and has that
the
deep,
big scary
voice.
Yeah, the big scary wolf gorilla looking thing.
Yeah. I challenge anybody to look at this and not be a little afraid. I mean, the effects are not the best. They were 84. They were great for 84. Now, I'm not so sure. But it's like audiences might be too jaded, and there again falls the apathy.
Right.
That's why I think our generation loves that movie so much and continues to pass it down to generation and every other generation, because we remember the story in this, and we want kids and their kids and their kids to make sure they know imagination is everything.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Without it, life sucks.
That is absolutely brilliant. I love that. That's fantastic. It really is. My number 1 is actually a creature you've already mentioned. My number 1 are dragons. And dragons are so high on my list because effing look at it. I mean, just take your average dragon from your average... Now, I'm not even talking some deep, nuanced kind of thing like Tolkien stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm talking a little fairy tale book that you read to a 4-year-old, that's got pictures, that's, more pictures than words. It's a giant lizard that breathes fire.
Not always.
Not always. But that's the first dragon a lot of kids are introduced to.
Yes.
Besides Puff. And he's a nice dragon. We won't, like I mentioned, there are nice dragons out there.
Yeah, man, there's nice dragons out there.
Stop that. You will not disparage Puff the Magic Dragon. I will fight you on this.
I could go into the Bert series.
Don't do it. But dragons are on my list, so high on my list, because, like I mentioned, they're gigantic, fire-breathing monsters. Now, depending on the source material...
Oh, God, there's so many different sources, as I said.
You
could find every kind of dragon out there.
You have dragons that fly. You have dragons that don't fly. You have dragons that... Now, if you're talking now completely like opening up the door to, oh my gosh, the variety is making my eyes cross, once again, we have to turn to Dungeons and Dragons. Which was actually where I really got my introduction to the idea that there could be dragons that could be so different and so vast. They're on their 4th edition now?
5th, I think.
Oh my gosh. When I started...
They went for decades without revising the 2nd edition, and then suddenly in the 1990s they started revising it like every 3 years.
Yeah.
So they're like on the 5th or 6th edition now.
Yeah,
it's like,
I don't
okay.
know. When I was playing D&D and collecting the books and worrying my parents...
We have tons of books about D&D.
And worrying my parents.
Do you worship Satan? You play D&D, listen to Aerosmith, and burn incense.
Yeah. I didn't get that from my parents. I got that from my sister. If I'd been smart, I should have told her, yep.
In a really deep voice.
But no, anyway. Dragons in the D&D universe were divided into 2 categories at the beginning. Now it's just completely nuts. There were chromatic dragons, which were bad dragons, and metallic dragons, which were good dragons. And there were different kinds of dragons in each thing. There were, gold and bronze and silver and stuff like that. And then you had the bad dragons. They were red, black, white, blue, green. And all these other dragons...
Chartreuse, plaid.
Stop that.
Paisley.
Quit it. Come on. And these all these different kinds of dragons. I mean, you had dragons that breathed fire. And, you had dragons that could shoot acid out of their mouths. You had dragons that could use magic spells to confuse people. And it was like, wow, this is a lot more dangerous.
What exactly do you think an ability would have? What ability would a puce dragon have?
If you're not going to take this seriously, we can just stop now.
Take this seriously? Look at who you're talking to.
Fine, valid point. And then, of course, you get into dragons like Smaug from the Tolkien books.
Can I ask a question about Smaug? Because I'm curious. Smaug is, in Tolkien's universe, Smaug is what kind of dragon?
Just a dragon.
A dragon. Why is he obsessed with gold? He can't spend it.
Dragons have
I'm just curious, because it seems like an odd thing to be afflicted with.
Yeah, but dragons have always... That's something that's... a lot of mythology about dragons, depending on where you go. Dragons just like gold. They like gold. They like gems. They like shiny stuff. They like collecting it.
So it's strictly a like the thing in Fantastic Beasts that's attracted to Nibblers. They're attracted to shiny things.
Well, if you take this is kind of a weird theory.
That actually makes more sense than anything else I've ever read.
Well, here's a really weird theory, and it just popped into my head, so it's a fresh baked theory.
Oh boy.
It's like
I thought you said to leave Puff out of this.
It's like not that kind of baked. It's like a fresh baked cookie, but weirder. If you take the idea that dragons, being big, scaly, lizard-like things, are somehow related to dinosaurs, Okay, let's take.
And there have been a couple of those attempted correlations that make no sense.
Let's take that theory and run with it. Okay, now you have dinosaurs. What are scientists saying now that are descended from dinosaurs? Birds.
Oh, you're asking me? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
birds, yeah.
Birds. And what do a lot of birds like? Shiny things.
Okay.
Lots of birds like to collect
shiny, yeah, that's true.
Shiny objects for their nests and stuff like that. They don't need them. They're not going to eat them.
They're just attracted to them.
They just want them because they
fair enough.
sparkle.
Yeah, surprisingly enough, birds are related more to dinosaurs than they are to pterodactyls.
Yeah.
Which are not really birds.
Right.
So,
I don't know. Maybe that falls into the whole dinosaur bird thing. I don't know.
I just thought it was an interesting question.
Dragons just like... Well, a lot of dragons, especially... Obviously, a dragon like Smaug thinks that he's very important. And he's very, He's
a narcissistic dragon.
He is a narcissist. Oh, yeah. Raging narcissist. And dragons feel, especially those kind of dragons, they feel like, well, I'm the best. I'm the absolute best. So I deserve the best of everything. Even if I have to take it from somebody else. Sometimes, especially if I have to take it from somebody else.
Right.
So my number 1, dragons.
Those are good choices.
I think so, too.
My top 10 were Most Dangerous Fantasy Creatures. Number 10, the Blob, or blobs in general. Number 9, Hydra. Number 8, Xenomorphs. Number 7, Trolls. Number 6, Kaiju of various types. Number 5, Dementors from the Harry Potter universe. Number 4, Dragons. Number 3, Kraken. Number 2, Sentient Computers. And number 1, Apathy as personified by the Nothing and Gmork in the Neverending Story.
That's a great list. My list goes thusly. Number 10.
It took me a month to come up with.
No, it was really good. It was really, really well thought out. I really loved it. My number 10 are robots. My number 9 are merpeople. Number 8, ghosts. Number 7, aliens. Number 6, magic users of the human variety. Number 5, the Fae, various types. Number 4, lycanthropes. Number 3, zombies. Number 2, vampires. And number 1, dragons.
Those are interesting stuff.
Thanks. We'd love to know what you think. I mean, is there a creature that we didn't mention? If you want to bring up, if you want to make your own list,
our audience isn't afraid of crickets.
If you want to yell at us, for the Twilight Slams, bring your hate. Tell them
Sparkly vampires.
Front
row at PNRNetworks.com. Now, I'm going to tell you something else right before we go that you're going to have to listen to. Next week it's my turn.
Yep.
And this coming week, this next show is our season finale. We'll explain that in a minute. And this is going to be fun. I actually have already finished most of my list.
I'm not the slightest
And I just came up with it this afternoon. I want you, and again, what a surprise, it's music oriented. I want you to come up with your top 10 screaming 70s zonkers.
What?
I
don't know what you just said.
I know you don't, but you will when I explain it. I want you to think of the 10 songs that you hear on the radio, on a TV commercial, in a movie. It doesn't matter where you hear it, but when you hear it, you instantly think of the era the song comes from, the 1970s.
Ooh.
Now, caveat, 1 song per artist. You can mention other songs by the artist later when you're talking about. But if you've got somebody that's got like a ton of hits in the 70s, pick the one hit that you think is really personifying.
That's fair.
I am a 70s junkie. I grew up in the 70s, so this has been really tough for me. But I've got 11, and I'll probably have 50 when I get done, and I now have to cut it down. But the idea, the songs that are the most iconic songs recorded and released during the 1970s, because they're all over TV, they're all over radio. Thank you, Guardians of the Galaxy, in movies and everywhere else. So it'll be interesting to see what we come up with, because
that sounds great.
My music tastes are not necessarily the same as yours.
No.
So like I said, 1 by each artist. So I don't want a whole top 10 list that's all Kiss or all Aerosmith.
I got it. Yeah.
But, whatever, the minute you see a commercial and they're using a song, you're like, another song ruined for capitalism. Hey, that's from the 70s. You know?
I got it.
So our top 10 screaming 70s zonkers on our season finale. Now, why is it our season finale? Even though we're going to not be going away, and we'll tell you why in a minute. Front Row 5 and 10 is going to take a few weeks off in the summer for a new special series. Just like we're doing with Subject Cinema's Drive-In Summer. Mm-hmm. We came up with a cool idea that we wanted to try out, and we thought, well, lists are sometimes difficult to come up with, and God knows as much as we beg, nobody's sending them in. You guys really should. You listen to the show. Come on, send in your list. And you can keep sending them in all summer long.
Sure.
Even though the other show's going to be on. As it's scheduled now, on Thursday, July 6th, we will debut, I gotta read the title so I don't get it wrong, Subject Cinema presents The Recipe Reel. And this will be running through the early part of September, 8 weeks of shows where we're going to discuss the importance of food in the movies. Mm-hmm. We're both comfort foodies.
Yeah.
I'm a big recipe nut. We're going to talk about movies, TV, cooking shows. We'll have a recipe for you every week, hopefully. Mm-hmm. You can download. The idea, and actually, we've got something else going on. I can't say that. I am attempting to talk to chefs, popular known chefs, about their favorite movies involving food. Out of almost 20 letters, I've gotten one response so far, which kind of sucks, but we'll feature it on the first show. And I wasn't surprised that we heard from him, because he's not American. Everybody else has been American, and they're always agents and crap and everything, and you can get in touch with him right from his website. So we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. But it's called The Recipe Reel, and we're going to have lots of fun with it, and we hope you will enjoy it.
Yeah.
And we hope, nothing definite yet, we are hoping Cavebabble will be represented by segments of their Cavebabble Eats Odd Things from their show. Over the years, Eric wants to try and put something together. So we hope we'll have Cavebabble involvement too. Mm-hmm. And maybe Anthony. We'll see what he says. I got to talk to him about that. So next week, our final Front Row 5 and 10 of the summer. Following that, for 8 weeks, it'll be Subject Cinema's The Recipe Reel. And Front Row 5 and 10 will return the Thursday after our vacation in mid-September. So we hope you'll be there and continue to listen all summer long.
Yep.
In addition to that, we have Subject Cinema every Sunday, all summer long. It's Subject Cinema's Drive-In Summer. We're saluting drive-ins across the nation, doing drive-in fare, drive-in food, current films as well, and a lot more. And that's on Sunday evenings, of course, right at eCinemaOne.com and SubjectCinema.com. Go over to SubjectCinema.com for our very special redone website for the drive-in summer months. Mm-hmm. Platinum Rose's Garden is off the air for the season, but you've got some specials coming up in July.
Yes, I do. Platinum Rose's Garden is my my supernatural podcast.
Devoted to her honeys.
Devoted to Sam and Dean Winchester, who could probably kick the butts of all of the bad monsters on both our lists, and actually have on some occasions.
I don't know about Dementors. They might be pretty scared of Dementors. Sam would be scared of Dementors. I don't know about Dean.
Anyway.
If
you'd like to go back and look at my review of season 12, that's the last show I have up. I am going to be doing some shows later on in this summer. One show that I'm working on right now, I'll give you a little taste of. I'm looking at, I've actually talked about this before, but I'm going to do a little differently. I'm looking at fan fiction. And I'm going to be highlighting certain authors and their stories. And not all of them are going to be supernatural stories. There's going to be some Avengers stuff out there, some other stuff out there that if you'd like to check out, and you can check that out over at PlatinumRosesGarden.com.
That new stuff will be coming in July sometime. Also, don't forget our weekly shows that recap what's coming out in theaters and on home video. Tuesday, Digidex on Tuesdays for the home video crowd, and 3 Minute Weekend every Friday for the new release crowd. All the movies hitting U.S. theaters and home video. Plus, Cavebabble with Eric and Valerie Lyon. Sundays, movies, games, TV, all kinds of crazy stuff. Cavebabble Eats Odd Things. All from their gloriously Midwestern perspective.
Yep.
Eric and Valerie Lyon bring you Cavebabble at cavebabble.com. And our brand new our brand new family member, Anthony and Pee Wee, are back with a brand new show, Comic Grotto, with Aunt B and Pee Wee. All about comics. And it's going to be fun. They had 14 downloads off their first show.
Awesome.
Without even any connection.
That's great.
Without a player or anything. I'm like, are you kidding me? ComicGrotto.com, and Anthony and Pee Wee, they actually do know their comics. They're really...
Yeah, they do.
They're big comic fans, and this is going to be something...
And they're really funny, and they're really knowledgeable, so hopefully you
And
can
it is
check
not
them
safe
out.
for work, neither is Platinum Rose's
no.
Garden. Catastrophe Vortex. I've been having problems just finding the time to do it, but I will finally get back to it this weekend, and it should return on a weekly basis in July on Wednesdays evenings. And don't forget also, in addition to our regular Subject Cinemas Drive-In Summer, on Tuesday, July 4th, the 12th annual eCinemaOne Rising Stars Honors. It'll be available at 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 noon Pacific time, with 10 actors and 10 actresses joining our alumnus as the 2017 class of Rising Star honorees.
That's gonna be
so
really
please
exciting.
join us for that.
And if you'd like to follow us online, all the other things that we do online, you can follow me, Platinum Roselle at Twitter.com, and you can follow TC at eCinemaBoston.com.
That's where I usually am. You can also do eCinema1.com. I'm there too. And
if you'd like to check out any fan works, I am on fanfiction.net. Go to the search engine and check out Platinum Rose Lady, and you'll find all of my fanfic over there. And if you like it, or even if you don't, leave a review, and hopefully you'll enjoy it.
And check out eCinemaOne and eCinemaBoston throughout each week as we get new stuff going on. Right now, eCinemaBoston is covering the Roxbury International Film Festival. eCinemaOne has a bunch of new columns that should debut next week, including ideas for new viewing pleasure on Netflix, on Fandor, and on... what was the other one? Amazon Prime. Plus our usual weekly stuff over there too.
Yep.
I think it's time to get out.
I think so too.
So join us next week for our top 10 screaming 70s zonkers. And until then,
I'm Kim Brown.
I'm TC Kirkham.
And we hope we can count on you to help us count up our list next week on Front Row 5 and 10.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Front Row 5 and 10 with Kim Brown and TC Kirkham.
Podcasting's choice. From coast to coast, continent to continent, right here 24/7.